Today on Up Front, Milwaukee's surge in violent crime. Two views on what's causing it and how to stop it. First, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr. Is a culture of violence being passed from one generation to the next? Then, Chief Judge Jeffrey Kremers. Are sentences for violent offenders tough enough? Plus, on the road to 2016 with Scott Walker. His pitch to voters in New Hampshire.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. We begin today with the debate over what to do about the spike in deadly violence in the state's largest city. Homicides in Milwaukee up nearly 200% over last year at this time. Last week, we heard from Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn, who wants tougher sentences and tougher gun laws. Today, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr., who says some of the problems the city is seeing today are generational and will take a generation to fix. Sheriff, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thanks, Mike. It's my pleasure.
I want to ask you about that statement, a generation to fix what's going on.
Well, in Milwaukee, we've seen the emergence of the underclass, a subculture of people. This is not the general poor, not the general black poor either. It's a small segment of the population. Generational poverty, all right, generational school failure, people who are chronically unemployed. That's why I said we're talking about a generation of problems here. But what we can be best situated right now is more effective policing to at least separate those good law-abiding people, predominantly black, in these crime-ridden areas from the criminal perpetrator.
So you would suggest if you could do this, you'd like to see more cops on the street, more sheriff's deputies on the street, things like that?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Cops matter.
Hundreds more?
At least. I mean, minimum. I said anywhere from 300 to 500. You can't hire them all at once, but maybe over the course of 2 years. We haven't seen anything like that. I haven't seen an effective crime-fighting strategy put forth, because if I were going to have to finance that as a taxpayer, I'd want to say, what are you going to do with all those cops? How are you going to deploy them? I want to make sure that I get my money's worth and that they're effective with what they're doing.
Let's talk a bit about the judiciary's role in this. You've been critical in the past. What precisely is the criticism you have of what you see in the criminal justice system?
That's the weak link here, Mike. We have a soft-on-crime Milwaukee County judiciary that continues in this revolving door fashion of putting these career violent criminals, long criminal histories. You've heard about it. We've all read about it, where they cycle through the criminal justice system. They're slapped on the wrist, give them probation, give them a short stay at the house of correction for some very serious offenses, armed robbery, sexual assault, shooting at people, and they put them right back into these stressed neighborhoods to do what they do best, and that's to reoffend and claim more victims, many, by the way, who are black.
Gun laws. You're not a proponent of toughening gun laws, and yet the chief of police says, Ed Flynn says, you know, I can't imagine that Sheriff Clark would be against the notion of having somebody who is in illegal possession of a firearm for the second time face a tougher sentence. Would you support something like that?
Of course. It's a great political statement, but as he knows, and he knows this well, it doesn't matter. We have enough laws on the books. We have ineffective sentencing, all right? When a person comes up before a judge for an armed robbery, a bank robbery, like the guy who shot the person who hit the 2-year-old, he got a 13-year sentence of which he served 2 years, and he's put right back in the street. We don't have a law problem. We don't need more laws. We need tougher sentencing. And so he and I are somewhat on the same page in terms of looking at the judiciary and asking them to end these social engineering projects that are endangering the lives of law-abiding people in Milwaukee.
Social engineering, that's one thing you talk about. You also talk about changing the culture, and I don't know if you're drawing a link between welfare programs and dependency on government and what we're seeing today. Are you drawing that link?
Without a doubt. We need an audit of every anti-poverty program in the city of Milwaukee to determine their effectiveness. We spend millions of dollars in terms of state and federal grants for these anti-poverty, their mission to reduce poverty, yet poverty continues to be entrenched in the city of Milwaukee. You look at the school system. You look at the fact that people can't find meaningful work, so what are we doing to attract jobs to this area so people can find that sort of thing? And until we do those things along with law enforcement, mine's a two-pronged approach, but until we do those things simultaneously, you're going to continue to see the abhorrent violence in our streets and communities in the city of Milwaukee. The problem with the welfare programs is they're not working. They're ineffective, which has led to the growth of the underclass. Okay, the underclass comes with a different set of values. They settle disputes with violence. They take property at gunpoint. They incite fear and intimidation in neighborhoods, the drug trade, so on and so forth. Having kids out of wedlock, failure to effectively raise your kids, those sort of things, failure to stay consistently in the workforce. When all those things come together, it is not the cause of crime, but it is the breeding ground. Those are the risk factors, this emergence of this underclass. We're seeing these underclass behaviors on display, so we need to shrink the size of the underclass with some of the things that I talked about in terms of better schools, holding parents accountable for raising their kids, so people can find meaningful employment, and then put that together with more effective policing. That's when you're going to start to see a drop, an extreme drop in the crime and violence we see today.
You and I have talked about this on a number of occasions, but we're now fewer than 10 months away from the primary and the race for mayor of Milwaukee. Have you made any decision about whether you're going to get into the race? I mean, there are already a couple of candidates in. There's going to be a primary, no doubt. Are you going to join that group of candidates?
Well, that's a discussion that I continue to have with people. There's a lot on the table in terms of what I might do.
You realistically have to make that decision.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to allow the clock to put the pressure on me. You know, I have name recognition in this city. My message is clear. People know what they're going to get. And I'll make a decision that is best for not just me, but where I can have the most effect in terms of positive change here in the Milwaukee area. And right now, I just don't know what that might be.
Do you think you can do that as sheriff? Have the most positive effect on change?
That might be. You know, time will tell as we go on. We'll take a look. But like I said, nothing's off the table. I have the advantage of being able to get in late because of my name recognition and what I've already done here. I'm a known commodity in the Milwaukee area with the electorate.
Are you leaning one way or the other?
No, not today.
Not on this program. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr. It's good to have you back on the program.
Thanks for asking. Thank you, Mike.
When we do come back, do judges have a role to play here? Do we need tougher sentencing? I'll be asking Milwaukee County Chief Judge Jeffrey Kremers. And later, the Democratic State Senator working to change her party from within. That's when Upfront continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.